Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Nate Barrett, Vice President of Programs and Development at the Coleridge Initiative. Today, we're just hosting a webinar to share a little bit of information about our upcoming data analytics training opportunity, which is going to be focused on enhancing labor market insights with jobs data. So just want to do a quick welcome for everybody. Our two main partners here, the Coleridge Initiative and the NLx Research Hub. We'll share a little bit more about the organizations here in a little bit. But really wanted to, one, thank everybody for coming. And then two, in the chat, if you want to just put your name and what agency, organization, state you're from, that would be helpful. Just kind of say hi to everybody. But really kind of before we started, kind of want to say, what's this opportunity about specifically? So if we move to the next slide, so why are we here? This is kind of what we'll cover in the agenda today. We'll talk a little bit about why we're here, what the opportunity looks like. We'll introduce the data analytics training program, talk a little bit about Coleridge's role in that. We'll introduce the National Labor Exchange Research Hub and the data that will be used for this class. Talk a little bit more about class details so you understand sort of what the timeline, the layout, the requirements, and what you're getting yourself into potentially. And then sort of how this work fits into the broader multi-state data collaborative network. And then we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. So we'll be respectful of everybody's time. I know we have an hour booked, but hopefully we'll allow for a lot of time for questions at the end. So next slide. So a little bit more why we're here. So what is the opportunity here? So probably don't need to convince you all that we are in an era of changing workforce needs. I think the data bears that out pretty specifically. Just citing some recent stats from 2021, from 2016 to 2021, 37% of the top 20 skills requested for the average job changed, right? And future outlook suggests that this trend is predicted to continue, if not be a little bit more pronounced, all the way, as far as the predictions go, which is the longest I've seen is 2030. Now, this is obviously going to have heterogeneous effects across our workforce needs. I mean, it's not every sector is going to be impacted the same, but ultimately what we want to do here is better understand and incorporate the data that can help provide a little bit of insights into how things are changing from a skills perspective, what jobs are requiring, so that we can better understand them, and how do we create development and training opportunities and educational opportunities to meet those potential needs. So in this class, we're going to focus specifically on this. We're going to leverage the National Labor Exchange data, jobs, along with other existing workforce-related data, so that we can help convey the skills-based economy and how it can be aligned with educational and training supply. And that is the main focus of this course. There's going to be lots of opportunities to kind of explore the NLx data, think about what this means for economic development, think about what this means for feedback into training programs and educational programs. And so this is really our first foray into including this into the training program. And I'm seeing a lot of familiar names come up in the chat, so it's good to see you again, or at least see your names again. And you'll know that this is one area that we've talked about in prior classes, where this is a spot that where you need more insights, right? We often talk about what we see as the supply of labor as we're following folks from post-secondary into workforce, but we don't have great insight into what the demand looks like, or a way to operationalize that in a way that informs our programs a little bit better. And so it's going to be the focus of this class. Next slide, Ben. So just a little bit more, kind of pull back a little about Coleridge's role in this training, and more broadly, is we're a nonprofit mission-based organization. We're focused on building capacity in governmental agencies at the state, federal, local level to empower better use of administrative data so we can make better decisions, advance the field of evidence-based policy, and ultimately, for the public good. We have the ADRF, for those of you familiar, it's our administrative data research facility that allows us to host securely confidential micro-level data. We have our training program that this is a part of. We work in our cross-state collaborative for product innovation and scaling. We have the multi-state networks, all specialized programs. We have the Democratized Data Challenge. We have the State Impact Collaborative, which I think I saw a couple names that had submitted grants for that. And we provide external access. All of these efforts are focused on that singular sort of mission of how do we build capacity, how do we generate good data and evidence from that so that we can make better decisions. And these are sort of all the roles that we play within that, with the training being a huge part of that. So a little bit more about the training, I'll kick it over to Ben.
Great. Thanks, Nate. And nice to see some familiar faces as well. I'm Benjamin Feeder, Senior Manager of Training and Analytics here at the Coleridge Initiative. So the next few slides, just to kind of go back to our overview, I'm going to provide just some more details specifically about how we run our applied data analytics training opportunities before kicking it over to some folks and our partners at the National Labor Exchange to talk more about the data and the opportunity as well. So just in general, with our applied data analytics, aka ADA training programs, is really focused on that first A, which is applied. The intention here is for all participants to have an applied experience that's useful for when you all go back to your own organizations and you apply the same concepts to your own work. And beyond just concepts, of course, also tools. So that might be from a programming standpoint, that might be just more so from a data literacy standpoint. There's a little bit in there for everyone. And there are almost these different kinds of pathways that you might want to take based off of what you want to get out of it. Really the key focuses are both from the data literacy standpoint, as well as from the programming or more technical approach as well. For this training, we'll be programming in R and SQL. The intention beyond that is also to grow and support a trained community of practice. So I'll get to this towards the end as to who's eligible for applying, but the intention is for more diverse interdisciplinary teams, and especially teams that are across with teams from different states as well, so that we can collaborate across states, across institutions, share ideas, and grow as a whole. And then also, of course, teaching in the context of what we do. So as Nate talked about on the front end about the opportunity, these are really the intention here is to drive into some of the issues that you all are working with and encountering on a daily basis, and providing some opportunities and a chance to play around in the ADRF, build out some code that you can take back to your own centers. And the kind of the longer term intention here is not just to build out these one-off projects in the class and to go through this class almost as its own project, but to build that into sustainable products that can be put into practice to inform evidence-based decision making, whether that's at the local level, the state level, or the federal level, depending on your organization. The bullet points here are just two of kind of the overarching questions that we're working with for the purpose of this class. So how can we leverage job postings to provide the information necessary to educational providers, employers, and job seekers that is needed to fully realize a modern skills-based economy? And then what are the key skills and credentials demanded by employers in our state, and how do they align with educational outputs? So based off of these two overarching questions, we're going to be forming the rest of the class content that's really shaped around this. It's shaped around and leveraging the best aspects of the NLx data. We're going to be working with some synthetic education and workforce data as well, so that we can explore some of these use cases and see how we can leverage the data systems together, again, to generate evidence for decision making. To get a little bit into the nitty-gritty of how the class is structured, we have two modules, if you will, for the class. The first is what we call our foundations module. The long term, and let me see if I can get this right, is foundations of data literacy and technical concepts. And so the idea here is that it's more gentle introduction. It's 4 self-paced units, introducing some of these key data literacy and technical concepts. And to supplement the self-paced nature of it, we have 1 hour weekly, almost like office hours, and dedicated support time to walk through these concepts. It's introducing the same analytic framework that we're going to apply to the NLx data and to some of the other data that we'll have in the class, and really introduce some of those key programming concepts on public data so that participants can get familiar working inside the ADRF and working inside the remote environment, while also getting familiar with or reinforcing some of those key concepts that will then apply to the restricted data in the next module, which we have not thought of a fancy name for. It is just called Module 2, as is currently structured. So this is really the meat of the class, if you will. We've structured this so it's 12 2-hour sessions. The first hour or so is devoted to lectures where we're introducing some of the key concepts. We're applying those key concepts, whether it's cohort construction, thinking about measure development, thinking about privacy and confidentiality. We're applying that directly to the class focus. And then the second hour is where we'll work in teams and develop projects. We're applying those same concepts that we're discussing in the lecture to specific projects that are tackling at least aspects of those two overarching questions I introduced on a few slides back. So as part of this class, we'll cover labor market projections, working in the NLx data and some of the other data sources that you might already be using to build out some of these labor market projection reports. We'll cover record linkage, we'll cover cross-sectional and cohort analyses, we'll cover visualization, and so much more, really with the intent of walking through this analytical framework and applying it to the data that we have here for the purposes of trying to get a better understanding of job demand and how it aligns with some of our supply systems. So I know I just talked very broadly about the structure of the class, but we couldn't be doing this class without the NLx data and our partnership with the NLx Research Hub. So to hear more about the NLx Research Hub, I'm going to hand it over to Paul Daniels.
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you all for coming to this webinar and your interest in this new and exciting training opportunity. So as Ben said, my name is Paul Daniels. I am the manager for the National Labor Exchange, or NLx Research Hub. And now that we have that understanding of the overall goals and structure of the event, I want to give everyone a high-level overview of the National Labor Exchange and what really excites us about this class. So this is a great chance, not just for all of you, but for us here at the Research Hub as well, to take a big step towards realizing the vision that we have for the future of the workforce system. Now, for those of you that don't know, the NLx Research Hub is a service of the National Labor Exchange. The National Labor Exchange started in 2007 and quickly became the premier labor exchange in the US for providing a daily feed of millions of real online job postings from verified employers at no additional cost to the public workforce system and its customers. And while the NLX provides a lot of benefits to employers, governments, nonprofit workforce system partners, in this training, we're really focusing on the daily job feed and more specifically how this real-time and historic jobs data can be a valuable source of labor demand information to add to our collective LMI toolbox. Next slide, please, Ben. So in 2010, the journey of the NLx Research Hub really begins. And I promise not to walk through all 14 years right now, but the foundation starts in 2010 as NASWA begins to archive this daily NLx job feed. And with support from our workforce system partners, state workforce agencies, and a grant from the National Science Foundation, we spent the next several years evaluating job postings as a reliable source of labor demand information, and the National Labor Exchange job feed as a representative and reliable source of that data. And while we continue to evaluate the strength of the NLx data, that's one of those things that's ongoing. We're never going to be completely done assessing and reassessing this data. We end this initial phase with buy-in and really demand from across the workforce system and an infrastructure to effectively and efficiently store and provision access to this data. So phase two, which begins in 2021 when we officially launch the Research Hub, meaning we start actually providing access to users for this data. This is anchored from a round of funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which allowed us to further modernize this infrastructure and really more importantly, dig into identifying primary use cases through a pilot program centered around state workforce agencies. This allowed us to further identify strengths and limitations of the data from a user's perspective and create an initial list of technical enhancements needed to fully realize the Research Hub and provide a valuable and accessible resource to our users. And one example that came out of this work really was a better appreciation for what an information-rich resource job postings can be to access information about in-demand skills. However, we did hear from a lot of past, present, and potential users that accessing the data needed to empower and usher in a truly skills-based economy can be challenging and burdensome to access with limited resources. I don't think there's anyone on this call or anyone I've ever met that has enough time, staff, money, whatever it may be, to get at the information that we also desperately need. So in order to reduce this burden and create a space for the workforce system to access and produce the information needed to inform not just skills-based hiring and training, but also enriched understandings of labor supply and demand, developing really powerful economic outlook reports and more, we began phase 3 of the Research Hub. Next slide, please. And in this phase, we're really working to further enhance the NLx Research Hub in a way that continues to make the data available for a growing variety of use cases while focusing on lowering as many barriers to access as possible. So accessibility, enhancement are two words that I've already said a lot and really are at the core of everything that we're doing here at the Research Hub. Efforts so far have included creating additional data structures, an updated API, and developing monthly files available on an SFTP server so that you don't need to utilize an API to get at this information, as well as most recently internally developed insights and visualizations to again allow people to more readily understand what it is that this data is telling us about US labor markets. And our goal, overarching goal during this phase, is to continue to push the Research Hub from a database into a data community. And we do this by improving how we develop and provide this real-time data and products to build capacity throughout the workforce system. And how we're doing that is through engaging the audiences that need this data to make user-informed enhancements that make job postings and labor demand information a resource that is, again, truly accessible for the first time and built in a way that's going to meet the evolving needs of that workforce system. Next slide, please. And with that in mind, this is why we are really excited about this new training with the Coleridge initiative. The team at Coleridge has supported the Research Hub from the very beginning, in part because we really share a vision for the future. So throughout the Research Hub history, our mission has remained consistent. And as you can see here, it's to provide and utilize accurate and comprehensive job postings to compile actionable evidence across the workforce and education system. And the reason we do this is so that we can work towards a system-wide community that has the access it needs to the data and insights to not just do the work of connecting talent and opportunity, but to enrich our understanding of labor markets by addressing gaps that may exist in our current LMI and advocating for system-wide advancements in research and policy. So all this reinforces that Coleridge mission that we heard about earlier from Nate of building capacity and empowering better use of data to inform decision-making. And through partnering with the multi-state data collaboratives that you'll hear more about shortly, we're able to communicate with and build upon the great work that so many of the states are already engaged in and hopefully grow that LMI toolbox for the public good. So with that, I will turn things back over to you, Ben.
Thank you so much, Paul. So just some quick logistics before I hand it off to our last speaker from the multi-state data collaboratives. Just some logistics. First, we'll go through the class dates. This is just a brief overview of the two training opportunities that we have. So through this, we will be providing two classes here. You don't need to attend both. It would just be one or the other. The first one, and it's almost rolling. So the first one will start in October. The second one will start in January. For the first class, because we are with those 12 classes, and if we're doing them once a week, we are going to start to get into some of those holiday breaks. We are going to have sufficient breaks around the holidays. So we will have the final presentations in April. It's a bit, I guess, of a longer kind of window for the class, but it'll still be in total 16 classes plus the final presentations. Same goes for class 2. It's just a little bit more condensed because we don't have to work around the same holiday breaks. But so when we ask you to, or if you do end up applying, we'll ask that you either have a preference for class 1, class 2, or indicate no preference. In terms of who can apply, and I know that, so Nate put a message in the chat that feel free to use the Q&A button if you have any questions that are coming up. We'll have dedicated time at the end also in a few minutes for Q&A. But just to get at that first question, should you already know R and SQL before you take this class? I hope that this slide can help answer that question. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to apply in sets of teams. Your teams should consist of either 2 people or 3 people. Of that team, one must consist of a member from a state workforce agency. Others can represent, of course, state workforce agency, but the state education, economic development agencies, or local workforce boards. If you have questions, if your organization satisfies any of those requirements, you can reach out to us. We have we have a slide at the end where with some resources for how you can reach out to us afterwards, or you can put your question directly in the Q&A here. But of the team, at least one should have strong programming skills in either R or SQL. The ideal would be both, but R or SQL, we can work with that and we can fill in the rest there. But so to answer the question that was already in the chat, at least one person on the team should have strong programming skills. Not everyone needs to. We always function from the approach that data science is a team sport. So we understand that your teams might want to reflect that as well. If you have someone who's more policy focused, then you can combine, policy analyst with maybe your traditional data analyst and consider that a team, or however you would like to do it, as long as you the team fits these restrictions. So I kind of stole already what is required to apply. I already discussed that you need to select the session or indicate no preference for session. Ideally, we're going to have the perfect amount of participants in the fall one and the winter one and the spring one. We'll make it work though, regardless. But if you can indicate your preference or lack thereof, that would be incredibly helpful on the application. In addition, and this will be noted when the application is released shortly, we ask for the following, and this is for each member of the team: a recent resume or CV, a statement from each team member describing how their participation will increase the amount of actionable labor market information in the U.S. to support the recruiting, hiring, and training opportunities of all workers to good jobs. And then finally, a statement from each team member's supervisor describing how their participation will support their agency in the near and long-term future. So the application deadline on this, we have some time. We have a little, I'm just looking at the date. We have a little less than a month, but applications are due on or by September 17th. The earlier, the better, of course, but the application will close on September 17th. The application link is available on the slide. We will be sending out this application link as well after with the recording of the webinar, and then also the slide deck as well. So you will have all this information. There's no need to screenshot it, but if you're already ready and you want to go ahead and submit your application, you can copy and paste that application link into your web browser. That application link is live now. So that's just a few logistics about the class, but to hear more about how these trainings fit into the larger vision of the multi-state data collaboratives, I'm going to hand it over to Yvette Chocolat.
Hi, and I'm just going to go real quick because I see there are questions coming in and those are more important. But I did want to say that the Coleridge Initiative and NASWA staff work together to support a multi-state data collaborative, NASWA as the administering organization and Coleridge providing technical services like access to its data facility and training classes. It's a state agency-driven community, speaking of teams, program policy and data leaders who are interested in leveraging their agency administrative data and increasing capacity to improve policies and practices at the state and local level. I have 2 quick points. First, many agencies participating in the collaborative have had staff in at least one of the Coleridge Applied Data Analytics training classes. And we at the administering organization routinely hear great feedback on the classes and enjoy a really great partnership with Coleridge staff. The second point I want to make applies to this particular class. As you can see from the collaborative's new learning agenda, there are many topics that might benefit from insights deriving from jobs data. And the NLx data are a valued NASWA asset because of this kind of potential. So I'm super excited about what innovations some of the state teams might develop in the class and share through the multi-state data collaborative. And the entire team supporting the collaborative is really proud to help partner on today's webinar and include it among our sessions in our Learn and Share series, which you can find on our website. So there are some QR codes there if you want to learn more about the collaborative, but just wanted to be here as a really good partner to our friends at the Coleridge Initiative and at the NLx Research Hub.
Thank you so much, Yvette. So for some more resources, I know Yvette pointed to the QR codes that were on the previous slide. There's also information and links here if you want to read more about the Coleridge Initiative, in particular our training programs or how the ADRF works, the NLx Research Hub, of course, as well as the multi-state data collaboratives. And with that, I think we can open it up for questions using the Q&A functionality on Zoom. But of course, also, if you have other questions that come up after this webinar, you can email us at training@coleridgeinitiative.org. I'll put that email in the chat as well. And Nate, I'll hand it over to you to coordinate the Q&A.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ben. I did answer 2 of the ones. One was just a follow-up to what Ben covered on the R SQL. The other was a question about, is there a course cost? And there's not, except for your time, which is one of the reasons why we do ask for the statements, because we just want to make sure that everybody understands the commitment, and why we also need the supervisor statement so they understand your commitment of time that was needed to complete the course. But as far as the seats themselves, they are subsidized through a grant by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. We do have another question, Paul. I saw you were typing, and then maybe not. Martha asked is there any information on hiring data? Do you want to take that, Paul? I can probably give a roundabout answer to that, but you might be better suited.
Yeah, happy to help. Yeah, I felt like we were going there, so I figured I would just tell everybody live. In the NLx Research Hub, we currently do not have hiring data. This is job postings or advertisements, so we don't have that hiring information in there right now.
We will have, accompanying the NLx data, we will have the state administrative data as well. Ben, for this class we'll have the UI wage data and the synthetic UI wage data and the post-secondary data, correct?
Exactly. It's a synthetic data set that's based off of linked post-secondary and workforce data.
Okay. And then individual, so we have a question about individual applicants, a couple of those, and then the academic teams. I think, Paul, if I'm understanding correctly, the NLx data for now is available for state use.
So the NLx data is available to other users, academic users, workforce system partners are eligible for access to the NLx data. But this course itself is focused on the state agencies.
Yep. So I would say if on the academic side, I'll put the caveat here that I think if you're partnered with a state team and there's a relationship there where you're doing, analytics with them normally, I think that's fine, but there has to be state representation on the team if it had an academic member on it. So so that's answered. We would, I think as far as the individual applicants, if you're having trouble finding a partner from another agency or within your agency, reach out to us and we can work through that on a case by case. It would be preferential though if you could apply in teams of 2 or 3, but if you're having trouble, just reach out to us. We might be able to do a little matchmaking if we have multiple people reach out to us that are singles that are having trouble pairing up. Okay, answered. Okay, Paul, I think this, when you are data broken down at the county level, I'm assuming that's for the NLx data. And I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, you can get to the county level on that.
Yes, we are down to zip code, city, state, so we can build a lot of geographies based on that.
Excellent. Great. Okay, I think we covered everything. Let me double
Nate,
check
I'm just
here.
gonna flag, there's a question that I answered in the chat about a link to the application. I put a link, it's surveymonkey.com/and you know, that URL is available on the answered tab of the Q&A. It's also available, and it will be available not just on this slide, on the slide deck, on slide 17 in particular, but it will also be available. We'll send out an email to all registrants for this webinar session with this information, and it'll be available on the Coleridge Initiative website too.
And we will post the webinar and the slides shortly.
Yes.
So they're up for everybody. We have a question. Can states submit multiple teams if interest is high enough and skills on each team permit? Absolutely. With the caveat that we may not be able to accept everybody, but we, depending on what the application volume looks like, we may reach back out and ask if there's a team that needs to be prioritized. We've done this in the past, and we try to accommodate all applicants as we can, but sometimes the space requirements don't permit. But go ahead and submit, and then we'll do our best to accommodate. State agency representation have to be a workforce or labor related agency? Could it be a state agency that uses state workforce or labor data partnered with a local level agency? I'd say for that one, again, see what you can do about getting, if you're saying local level agency, being able to partner with an LMI shop there would be really important. I think even if it's at that local level, if it's another agency, sort of, I think here it says social services, if you're able to partner with a local LMI shop, or I think that would be fine. It would be fine. All right, I think that's it on volume of questions. Okay, and then Ben, on the website, do we have the specific dates listed so everybody can plan accordingly? Okay. So yeah, definitely. Just as an aside, I don't see any other questions, but just as an aside, we do ask that everybody make all the sessions. We understand things come up. We have a conference we may have to go to. We may have a vacation already planned. We've tried to book and keep the holiday dates pretty clear, so we weren't going to feed into anybody's planned time off. But when you look at those dates, if you know that you're going to miss 3 or 4 sessions, it might not be the best call, because we do ask that people make as many sessions as they can, because it's a team-based approach for project-based learning. Having everybody there and actively engaging is a really important part of the program. So if you know on the outset that you're going to miss quite a few dates, take that in consideration when you're doing either the first class or the second class.
Nate, I'll piggyback off that and just also note that the time expectations are available on the class website for the class. Traditionally, for that foundations pre-module, or that pre kind of getting into the NLx data module, we typically expect participants to spend maximum 2 hours a week for those 4 weeks. And then for the second module, where we're going to have 2-hour sessions, of course, we expect participants to attend for those 2 hour, the duration of those 2-hour sessions. And we do provide some pre-work for the sessions. And so we expect at a maximum, but traditionally anywhere from 2 to 4 hours a week, in it, that including the actual session time. But we'd say, just to be safe, I would book off or plan for about 4 hours a week once we get into that second module, for time expectations per week. Nate, there's
So-
another question in the chat.
Yeah. Yep, I see it. Trying to remember where we landed on this. If you have, yes, I think we're trying to cap at 3 members, and reason being is that we'll pair you up with another 3-person team, so that we have sort of, you know, groups working together. If it gets to 4 and we're getting a little high, it's tough to navigate that in a team setting. So we ask you to limit to 3. If you're hitting to 4, just submit 2 teams of 2. And if you're having trouble trying to think about how to organize that, just reach out to us and we'll work with you. Okay. Oh, I got a couple more. All right. That's a great, so we do, so for folks who are interested in training but can't commit to that schedule, would you all consider sharing the teaching notes? So, yes, when we are finished with the courses, we put everything up on our Git repository. So you'll have access to all the notebooks that we used and the training materials in the class. And those would all be available to you. Does only the team lead need to submit the application? Ben, that's a good question. I'm not sure how we set up the.
Yeah,
the
I can
application.
respond to that.
Yep.
And I'll just want to add on to Nate, to your response on the sharing all the teaching notes. So we do, as Nate said, we do post all of the exported class materials on a public facing GitHub repository. Of course, there is no data access. And so while we do post those materials, you won't actually be able to run the code on the NLx data or anything like that, because that information is only available inside the ADRF. But there is there will be a publicly available resources that summarize a lot of the work that we're doing in this class. And to answer the other question about who submits the application, the way that we have it set up is effectively the team lead submits an application. The team lead can just be any one of maximum 3 people on the team. And they are going to submit and compile the information and this information on behalf of the maximum 3 participants. So that person who's submitting doesn't actually have to be on the team either. It's probably a little easier if it's someone who would be on that team or on that applicant team, but you can do it any way that you want in terms of who's actually submitting the application. But when they submit, the TLDR is when you submit, you'll be submitting for the entire team.
Ben, can you put the link to the
Yes, and
the
we're going to
class
update the
website?
class website if it's not already updated to include all the specific dates. Apologies if that's not up right now.
It's not up yet. Okay, we'll have that rectified by the end of the day, so it has all the dates in there for before you apply. Sorry about that. Future consideration, there's a high demand for use of LMI data in higher education and training to support that use. Data folks now state agencies they would be desirable. I would agree. So keep an eye out for future trainings in the upcoming year. For this last question, it says just a suggestion for future consideration. There's a high demand for use of LMI data in higher education. Training to support that use without a focus on how state agencies use the data would be desirable. We have some trainings coming up on that for the calendar year 2025 for next year. So it was an anonymous attendee, so I don't know who to address that to, but keep an eye out for that. We'll be posting those as the dates firm up a little bit more, but we will have some trainings focused on that coming in the coming year. Okay. All righty, I think we got all the questions. See a few people have left, so we'll do a last call for questions. Okay, and for those of you that are just kind of taking it in and maybe are still kind of mulling things over, that's the email address for us. Please feel free to reach out with any questions you have, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We're usually pretty good about turning those down within the hour. So So just, yeah, please don't be shy. Make sure you kind of know everything that you'll need to know before applying. Cool. All righty, with that, I think we're good to go. Thank you all very much for your time today.